Good morning, beloved community, and happy feast day of big-hearted people. My name is Marilaurice, and it is my pleasure to begin our breaking open of the Word today. I would like to take a few minutes to consider some of the words of the Word today, this third in our series, as Michael mentioned, of healing Gospels. To get the whole story, though, we need to look back a bit at the path that led us here. For the past few weeks, I have been taking a wonderful class with Joan Mitchell, CSJ, on the Gospel of Mark. Her insights have inspired me, and I highly recommend her as a teacher and her book, Mark's Gospel, The Whole Story. Looks like this. On the second Sunday of January, we celebrated the feast of the baptism of Jesus, and we heard the prophetic words, "This is my beloved, my own." This is where Mark's Gospel begins. After baptism, the Spirit drove him into the desert. And we will hear both of those stories next week on the first Sunday of Lent. After a significant time of solitude in the desert, 40 days, Jesus called the first 4 disciples from their fishing boats. And Simon, Andrew, James, and John followed immediately. This small group headed for Capernaum, the place that would become the headquarters of Jesus' ministry. The next day was the Sabbath, and as was his custom, Jesus went to the synagogue to teach and pray. Zach Willett opened the word of this story 2 weeks ago, telling us of the first healing in Jesus' brand new career, freeing a person possessed by that which was not God, calling them again to wholeness, teaching all who were present, it doesn't have to be this way. After that experience, during which the new disciples likely wondered what had they gotten themselves into, they were hungry. They headed to Simon's home for lunch. Upon arrival, they were shocked to find Simon's mother-in-law very sick in bed with a fever. Concerned family members and neighbors had gathered in their worry, so there were more folks about than usual to witness the second healing of the day for Jesus. Sue Bulger helped us see last Sunday that there are many complexities to healing. In this case, Jesus more than healed her fever. Jesus raised her up. She became the first female disciple, as far as we know, and the first deacon. She served the needs of those around her. We do not know her name. After these individual healings, more people crowded the courtyard, the doorways of this home of miracles, and Jesus healed them all well into the night. Jesus may have been surprised at what he was called to do and the energy that required of his spirit. For very early the next morning, he went off alone to pray. 2 times of prayer in as many days, and 40 days before that. Note to self, the work of spreading the good news of God's love requires being grounded in prayer, lots of prayer. Simon was convinced to go out looking for Jesus because, of course, everyone was clamoring for him. There were so many more wounds to be healed, so much more hope to be restored. But Jesus said, "Let us go on to the next town so I can proclaim the message there too." Here's where we pick up the story today. Jesus on the road, literally, the road outside of the town, the only place where a person with leprosy would be found. This person could never have been able to press themselves through the door at Simon's home. Never. Jesus comes to us where we are. Here are some of the words that caught my attention from this scene at the end of the first chapter of Mark. A person with the sores of leprosy. Leprosy. What do we know about leprosy? The description in the first reading is pretty explicit. Scabs, sores, blotches. So here are some leprosy beliefs and some leprosy facts. First century folks thought leprosy to be extremely contagious. As with much of the disease and misfortune of the day, leprosy was seen as a punishment from God, and the cure for it was considered as unlikely as being raised from the dead. Thinking it was highly infectious, the afflicted were resigned to live outside the camp, outside of community, safety, help if their illness progressed, economy. Affecting the nerves, skin, eyes, and lining of the nose, untreated leprosy can result in paralysis of hands and feet and blindness. Modern science has proven that leprosy is not highly contagious, but that it requires a prolonged exposure. It is a slow-growing bacterial infection that may not show symptoms for 20 years. The disease still exists, now called Hansen's disease, as Michael said. It is completely treatable. It could be eradicated worldwide, and it carries the stigma of centuries past to this day. So, this person is likely an elder, possibly with other complications of health, is probably economically poor, certainly lonely, and on the edge of desperation. Sounds a little like some of our elders confined to care facilities these COVID days. This person knelt down before Jesus. Historically, who is knelt before? Royalty. Those great, mighty, and powerful. Word of Jesus had already gotten around, so even this soul on the edge of the edge had heard of the rabbi that was not like other rabbis. Knelt down and implored him urgently. The person's statement of faith and urgent request was for their very life. If you will, you can make me clean. Moved with pity, compassion, sympathy, kindness, mercy, understanding, empathy, forgiveness. All the emotion of humanity in human Jesus. Jesus stretched out his hand and touched the person. Mary McGlone observes, if Jesus wanted to prove that he was not trying to win a popularity contest, he sealed the deal completely when he reached out and touched this person. That touch bridged a huge breach between law and love, between ritual and reality. God and humanity were in communion at that moment, and a new witness to God's presence in the world was created. Immediately, the leprous sores disappeared. Then, with a stern warning, Jesus sent the one who was healed away, saying, "See that you tell no one anything." I wonder about this and the stern warning. I can more easily picture Jesus with a somber tone, but with a twinkle in his eye. No need to say a word, for anyone who knows you or has ever noticed you will see with their own eyes that you are healed. But go, show yourself to the priest. What is happening here? Again, from Mary McGlone, suggests that Jesus is showing respect for the priest and his authority to declare the person healthy and part of the community again. Jesus, through the healed person, gave the priest a chance to do his job in showing the love of God. Tell no one. But the healed one left and began to proclaim the whole matter freely, spreading the word abroad. Evangelization, the single task of all disciples. If lost, then found; if a sinner, then forgiven; if forgotten, now held in God's love. The lived experience of an encounter with Jesus cannot be held in. It is good news. From shunned outsider to disciple extraordinaire, Jesus healed all the divisions that kept this soul from living life fully. What modern divisions might Jesus seek to heal? Monica Helwig offers these thoughts. Bitter poverty that stems from an economy we have devised. The outlawing of people seeking a new home far from violence. Death row inmates whom we isolate and remove all hope. Differences devised by skin color, perceived ability, or false gender norms. The work of healing looms as large as it ever did in the time of Jesus. After these 3 Sundays featuring stories of healing, how would you define healing? How does that apply to you, to a community, to a system? I invite you to consider joining a conversation group and sharing your definition and thoughts on healing.